Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of No Bull with Nobu, the All-American Shaman. Nobu, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me, brother.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. Today, we're going to talk about the great dichotomy of the universe, light versus dark, good versus evil. Anything you want to baseline set up this conversation with on your side, Nobu?
Actually, I'll say a poem. If I talk sense, it does not make any at all. Yet, my presence always takes every call. If I am neither here or there, but everywhere, how am I ever able to be alone, yet aware? Every one is connected to two. The sun is me and you.
Poem and a riddle and a mystery all wrapped up into one. My mind's still processing that, but instead of just having a bunch of dead air time with me thinking it through, maybe we'll just kind of to roll through. So what I heard in there is kind of like the paradox and the dichotomy of the universe and existence, and the fact that we are our individual selves, yet we're part of this mass network of consciousness that is the universe. So I guess with that, maybe that's where this light versus dark, this good versus evil stems from, is kind of that inherent paradox that we are all separate, yet we are all the same, and we're all one. So, yeah, where do we go from here?
Why? Here's a question to posit.
Yeah.
Why do the polarities need to exist? And
Yes.
whether
Thank you for
from a
doing my job right there. That's a good question for you, Nobu. Why do the polarities need to exist?
So I want everyone to imagine if what your ideal perfect day was like. You know, whether what food you would eat in the morning, if who your significant or romantic sexual partner would be, what the weather would be like, what kind of events and activities you would do during that day. Okay. Now, what if I told you you're going to do that experience for infinity?
It has to be the same exact experience. No variations.
You're gonna eat the equally delicious food that never tastes sour. You're gonna have sunshine that never ceases, and you're never gonna have rain, and you're never gonna have adversity, and you're never gonna see darkness, and you're never gonna experience suffering. How's that sound?
Well, it sounds good until you really start thinking about the concept of forever. And then it sounds like, dang, maybe I don't want that actually. It seems like I would want it, but then as the days would go on and on and on and on, I'm sure it would get boring.
Mm-hmm.
So is that where the kind of key to this dichotomy comes into play? Is like if you were, say, God and all powerful, like, and you just had unlimited time, you're probably just going to create situations where you have struggles.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, there's so many different dimensions looking at that. I mean, you can even just look at it from a very simplistic dopamine perspective and see that it's not going to last, right? Free dopamine just is not in our chemistry, but from a more broader spiritual perspective, you know, the contrast is what makes things beautiful. The only reason why flowers smell good is because shit fucking stinks.
Good point. Everything is relative.
Yeah. So if you don't have that scale, or again, like red, has its certain qualities about it, which is in great contrast to green because they both exist. Doesn't mean like red is inherently inferior to green, or vice versa. They both just have their time and place. Um, I I always recall like when I did a lot of heavy manual labor in the Marine Corps and construction and even just exercise, like a cold drink always tastes better after mowing the yard versus sitting on the couch all day. I think everyone would agree with that. Because again, that's just highlighting that basic principle of, the waveform, right? Is, we go up and we go down. And that's also what Lao Tzu and I would say also Buddha were getting at when they talk about, just choosing the middle way is being as still as possible in the center of that, not going into the extremes, not going to the extremes of highs in terms of positivity, whether it be through hedonism, psychedelics, pleasure, what have you, because like when a woman experiences the supreme joy of giving birth to their baby, at that very moment, they also have to be willing to experience the profound sorrow and grief of losing that child, right?
Mm.
You can't have
Yeah, and
one
like
without the other.
yeah, yeah. I guess it's like the like you have all these things that happen in the world, and like a lot of these questions that come up. It's like, how could this level of evil and darkness exist in this world? And I think I've heard in the past that like, well, in order for there to be the equal and opposite amount of good in the world, then like you almost need it as that other side of the coin. Is that something that
Hmm.
you
In
believe as well?
order, yeah, it's mathematical, right? Darkness is not inherently bad. Like night is beautiful too, and light. It's just different sides of the same coin. And I would say again, for the ego, for the sense of self, right? And I know I've been there and spent a large part of my life just saying "f you God," "f you universe," etc. But that those down points are necessary so we can see our light. You don't really see the intensity or the potential of your own power until you've been powerless, right? You
Mm,
don't understand or appreciate, again, also the other side of the equation of the feminine until you've been around a sausage fest in the Middle East for 6 months. So
mm,
the contrast of everything is what makes it what it is. Yeshua would be nothing without Satan, because who if there was no demons and no devils and no adversarial forces, again conflicting, no electron to the proton, then there'd be no need for him, right? There'd be no need for an avatar figure of Krishna, Yeshua, or Buddha, correct?
mm, hmm. Yeah, man, my mind's spinning so many different questions on this one. I'll
Told
try
you it was
to,
gonna be a good one.
yeah. It's like a few different things came up. Maybe I'll just do one that popped in my head first. So I think it was in a podcast that, or interview on that Thinking Aloud show that you had sent me over, and it was saying that like if someone is trying to understand God and they don't understand that, um, the Prince of Peace in light is just the other side of like the Prince of Darkness and like basically like death and despair, then like they don't truly know who I am. And that like really kind of blew my worldview for a minute there. Is like, because I think it was presented to me growing up, and I was raised in a Catholic household and went to a Catholic school. So it was always like, okay, God and Jesus are the good guys on this side, and like Satan and the devil and his whole whatever demon side is on that side. But the way that um, framed it was like, okay, no, God is like universe and everything within it, thus also encapsulating the 50% bad and the 50% good, and like that, like just kind of yeah, just changed my world perspective. And I think it's been something you mentioned as well too. I'm like, angels are kind of pulling you toward the light, whereas demons are maybe pushing you toward
Mhm.
God. Like, can you maybe talk about that that framing?
So for one, if we look at the word angel, angle, and then el, which in Hebrew means of God, right? So angles of light, angles of God. So they are, this above solar, masculine, patriarchal force of the Father, which again, like I said, pulling you, inspiring you to go, towards this direction, evolution. Again, universe experiences itself in this infinite fractal of different forms and characters, universe, one song. And then if we look at daemon, whether it be in computers as a subroutine within a program or a demon as a diamond, something that is forged through hard pressure and heat underground,
Mm,
right? It, for example, like in a lot of art, like I don't think Eminem literally, or a lot of rappers believe in demons in the sense of spirits, but they refer to it in a metaphorical context of like, oh, like that guy, he's got his demons, whether it be PTSD, etc. But again, like, these are literal entities that exist within different dimensions. And I believe, again, like, all that is created those different aspects, again, to one, experience itself at the highest levels and the lowest of lows, because it has to, right? But then as catalysts, because I do believe that everyone, even if that's Hitler, right, is playing the role they're supposed to play in the show, because the bigger the dragon, the stronger the hero that gets to present for it.
Mm.
Consider this for your life, you and the audience. If you want to be this, that, or the other, I mean, if you wanted to be like some avatar figure, Yeshua, Krishna, or Buddha, with this infinite level of frequency and radiance and compassion and love, would you be able to have that even if you were raped, murdered, tortured, hunted, stolen from, lied to, cheated, etc.? Could you still be compassionate and loving and accepting of all that comes your way? And if the answer is no, then that means you have to go through some more lessons, some more karma to get to that point of where you are truly grateful and loving towards everything.
Mm.
It's on the Telegram channel, but one of my favorite quotes is, if there was one prayer you could say every day, thank you would be enough, because everything is happening for you in your experience, not to you in some sort of like woe is me apathetic mindset. Even when you experience the car crash and the cancer prognosis or the miscarriage, it is happening for you in your evolution and ascension.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's tough pill to swallow for for any human, especially if like these kind of concepts are new to you as they were to me when I first heard them. And actually, my buddy Parker at one point said, pain is just another feeling, just like any other feeling. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? No, pain's worst. You got to avoid that. Like that's something that's like not good, and like we got to try to keep away from it as much as possible and try to avoid it as much as possible. But when you take that broader perspective as far as like the evolution of your soul, then it's almost like the more pain, the more gain. And then you start thinking about like, I mean, and the, the concept of being grateful for pain and suffering is again, like one of these like paradoxes of like, why would I ever want to do that? Like, why would I ever want to be grateful for pain? But again, if you like take these kind of metaphysical and infinite timelines into mind, and also maybe it helps to have a belief system that kind of aligns maybe more with like reincarnation and the perfecting of souls over different incarnations, and like the ability to just kind of think about the universe as this infinite ongoing thing where like your essence kind of continues, so then it's less of like this all or nothing, and like if this one lifetime ends and like then I'm in hell forever or heaven forever, I think that like helps to maybe soften the blow of accepting that pain and suffering may actually be for your ultimate good. Um, but yeah, I guess maybe like when you're working in your life coaching and when you're working in your shamanic healing, is that like a barrier that you help people kind of break through and realize? And maybe what are some of the ways you do that?
So for some people who are open to it, it's a case by case basis, because some people don't want to hear about God. They don't want to hear about anything remotely woo woo, or, they just can't, they can't grasp that. And again, I have compassion for it, because it wasn't until I sat with Bufo till the script got flipped and I did a 180. So let me just play advocatus diaboli, devil's advocate, to what you said in terms, like, go after my own methodology. Let's go to a very egoic, um, in this life, there's, let's just say it's pure nihilism. There's nothing else afterwards. You die, you're done. All right. Why still chase hardship, embrace hardship and suffering, and be grateful for it, Nobu? I'll tell you why. Let's look at someone like David Goggins, someone who doesn't have any cartilage in his knees, and he's still running, hundreds of miles, still doing thousands of pull-ups, still getting after it. He was already a Navy SEAL. He already has all these accolades, which if we look at it from this very like materialist root chakra, the mass crowd, most people will not achieve that level of success in their incarnation. I'm not trying to be a dick about it, just in terms of those physical and tactical and militaristic goals, the man's exceptional. And in order to be exceptional, you have to be the exception to what other people are doing. So if you want to the person listening, if you want to make your name out there, and this is your one shot, your one opportunity, an Eminem of this life to be somebody, you need to take every single bit of experience you can get that's hard, because every other person that's not doing that is avoiding it, right?
Mm.
The way out is in, or as they say in the Marine Corps, embrace the suck.
Yeah. Yeah. That then also kind of brings to mind what you said about Lao Tzu and Tao Te Ching and like the middle way as almost like abstaining from the ups and downs and like trying to find that middle path. And that would then perhaps suggest that you aren't evolving or like challenging your soul to an extent to like give it these ups and downs so that you can be hardened, like the diamond or whatnot.
Great point, JT. So we'll go there. We went to the highs, we went to the lows. Now we'll go to the middle. So the middle way for the masters and the sages are those who have foregone ego. They have foregone the sense of self. Whether they have recognized the Brahman, that they are God and everything else is God. God is within them and within everything else. That's like the top, let's say like 1% probably. Whereas the bottom other side of that is, well, I'm nothing and God is some man in a sky, right? Both are true, right? Both are true. It's just a matter of how you want to look at it. But going back to the Brahman, the samadhi state, the ego dissolution, the Christ consciousness is the path of inaction, like Lao Tzu, the still point, again, because the wave goes up and the wave goes down. So if we can just stay here and we can stay in that Om, we can just stay in that one frequency of inaction, not doing karma, because karma in Sanskrit means action or deed. So whether you do a positive deed or whether you do a negative deed, it has an equally polarizing effect. For example, when I heal someone, there's a good chance that I may fall sick or I'm going to suffer during the process. Yesterday, when my father was, in his surgery, I did some shamanic work on him, and at one point during the ceremony, like I had to face in that trance state and in that ceremony, I had to face and feel and accept the pain of him dying. That was a possibility, and not shirking away from it, not ignoring it. That's the ego that tries to control every last minutia of our reality. But when we let go and give God, when we surrender and release control, that's actually, again, just being and not doing. You allow things to manifest outside of yourself more naturally, because you're not now, in every action you take is having its own karma and its own energetic footprint on reality, kind of like Kojo Jutsu, or like the butterfly effect of like a butterfly flaps its wings in Japan and a hurricane starts in California. But if you are just being and just observing the observer, and this is like, again, I'm not at this level. Like, these are people who are dedicating their lives. They've forgone fame, popularity, ego, materialism, wealth, what have you, because they are just seeking to be constantly in that samadhi state. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess maybe that kind of brings up my next question, because I guess when I was first exploring, like self-help and philosophy and these concepts of like spirituality and connecting with God and things like that, it was, I guess in my mind, I was like, oh, well, I should try to be like Lao Tzu and try to live this middle path. But maybe, and as you're kind of talking through that now, it's like, there may be more value in realizing where I am now and realizing that I'm not really going to achieve that in this lifetime, perhaps. So I shouldn't get caught up or like hung up on not being that and like feeling down on myself for not achieving this state of ultimate zen, I suppose. And I'm sure that comes up in your shamanic work and life coaching as well. It's like, how do you maybe describe that to people or like kind of coach them along, kind of maybe identifying where they are as far as their current state and like what make giving themselves grace as far as like where they're at and like what they're trying to achieve. Like, could you kind of talk through that?
One, contrast is the thief of joy. So if you're constantly comparing yourself to like, oh, the sun's brighter than me, like, well, guess I got some news for you. You're never gonna be as bright as the sun. It just is what it is. You might as well just again, like, or like you incarnated as this man with a family and you're a householder. You can choose to look at the grass that is greener on the other side and and impose suffering and misery on yourself. Or again, if you just are grateful for everything that comes your way, no matter what it is, then you get to play your fractal, your facet of that diamond, that angle of light within this reality to the best and the fullest. And so there is acceptance is a big part of it, because if people are constantly so attached, like, well, I'm not rich, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, well, now you are kind of like Chinese finger trapping your own situation, because you have so much attachment. And this is also strong for morphic fields as well. Like if you have so much fixation on getting your result or your desired state, of I don't have this. What's that thought process? I'm not this. I'm not that. You're manifesting. And so the word was and the word became. You're also manifesting that not state. You're like, well, I'm not rich. Well, of course you're not. You said so. So furthermore, I think what the true value that Lao Tzu and these teachers bring to me in my work is it shows people, this contrast of, hey, like this is where you can go, but they're also telling you it's okay to be you, right? But like understanding the contrast and just playing your role. And when we also realize too that, the best way to get up the mountain in the first place is just take it step by step, which again only happens in the now. So that's another thing about being in the now, is being in that still point. Anxiety is being in the future, depression is being in the past, gratitude, joy, peace, happiness are right here.
Right. So it's like you can have these goals and you can have these desires as far as wanting to improve maybe your state, like maybe as the householder, like you're mentioning, like, oh, I would like to be able to provide more for my family and go on more vacations or have a bigger house, and that can be all well and good. But if you're too focused on the fact that you don't have it in the moment, then you will most likely continue to not have it, because as you said earlier on in the episode, the universe doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you are. Or maybe you said that in the Juice Fast update, but
oh yeah,
it's like it kind of gives you what you currently are. So I guess then being grateful for what you have in that current moment will then give you more of that thing that you're grateful for.
And which is again ultimately coming back to the karma piece, that the reason why you're attracting those frequencies, fields, people, actions being karma in the first place is because it's within you. You're resonating with it. So for example, some seppuku, when I was being a manho and very promiscuous, a lot of the women I was attracting were promiscuous women. So at the time I didn't care, but like when I was like detoxing out of that phase of my life and practicing celibacy and changing things, I was still for a period of time like getting the looks of a lot of like what I would call thoughts and whatnot. And then, but there's this awareness like, okay, like I'm still releasing that energy for myself, because you just don't flip over and change, drastically. Again, your cells take 7 years for your body to renew itself and rejuvenate and capacity. So if we just look again at the energetic signature there, as far as a biological, it's going to take some time for you to manifest fully a new reality, just at that biological scale.
Right.
Furthermore, But then like I noticed that when I was after 2 years of celibacy, I then broke my celibacy streak. But the woman that I attracted into my life was an indigenous bloodline shaman. Her father works with San Pedro. Uh, she works with ayahuasca and combo, singing bowls and whatnot. So like I attracted someone into my life who was in resonance with where I was at in a new state. Whereas before, the last woman before that, when I was vaping weed all the time, watching pornography, that woman posted nude pictures of herself online. Completely different, the woman in the red dress versus the shaman, like completely different realities with not a very long time sphere, 2 years. But the person I was much different because now that the woman in the red dress is not appealing to me. I mean, from like a contrast perspective, but I recognize again from my path, different things. Does that edify on the attract what you are piece?
Yeah, yeah, and maybe I can use that to also kind of segue back to the theme of the episode with good versus evil. Like you were mentioning, kind of like what is inside of you is kind of like
Perfect.
like what's inside of you, like you, and then when you see it outside of you, it can kind of cause a reaction or like trigger an activation, whatever you want to call it. And so I think that's maybe kind of like at the crux of why I wanted to talk about this theme as well. It's like almost like why we have like this inherent desire to be good, to get better, to display more light and more love, versus kind of falling down into the path of darkness or quote unquote evil and like doing, like murder and rape and like all these things that we know are bad. Like it's almost like how does that how does that happen on like the individual level where like we have this inherent knowing that this thing is good and like we're striving toward it, but like there's always this like almost like temptation or like pit that we have to avoid and fall in, and like can you talk through that like kind of whole dichotomy of like the slippery slopes and the pitfalls and traps and things like that?
First off, I want to say bless you because in your own purity, you do not realize that there are people who seek to go deeper and darker intentionally, consciously. So bless you, brother, because your heart is pure. Now, some seppuku before then I transition, and please pivot me back on if I sidetrack too much.
Okay.
Is like I was at before in multiple stages of my life where I was seeking to become as dark and dangerous and as violent and as whatever word you want to put on that side of the coin as possible, right? Like I was building guns, I was making suppressors illegal, like I was working in Mexico doing some bad things. Again, I joined the United States military because I wanted to kill people. It wasn't for God, core country. It wasn't because I was a patriot. It was because I had a fuck ton of rage inside of me that I wanted to exercise. Now that goes back to the demon, right? Exercising your demons. Now, as far as the adversarial forces, again, that contrast is necessary, just like friction. Like if you want to polish, as a gunsmith, if you want to polish a block of steel, you have to use a very rough, the initial polish, we need to use a very rough grit sandpaper. It's extremely abrasive. I mean, like you can see how much it sticks up off the paper. And then I apply that to my steel and the steel gets smoother. And then I use a finer grit and the steel gets even smoother. And then we again get closer and closer down. Now it's more polished and it's reflective and it's shiny. The karma of experience is very similar. So as we go through purification, or as we exercise one's demons or diamonds, we then get them more and more polished. So again, the initial stage of karma, and this is also where each person's sadhana is different in intensity. Don't wear the color black. Don't wear moldavite. Don't take tons of psychedelics of strongest variety if you don't want to go through it fast. Because when you want to Ganesha things, the faster that energy has to be released, the more intense the Herxheimer reaction, the detox symptoms, right? There's a much more intense detox experience of doing a juice cleanse with grapes and lemons than there is with watermelon, because the grapes and lemons are a higher frequency, lighter, and so they you're going to have more of it's going to be more painful initially. So again, that's where each person's sodden and path is different. Do you want to go low and slow, or do you want to go hard and fast? If you want to go hard and fast up, you have to be ready for all the valleys and the Marianas Trenches.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I guess in like a lot of this show too is, talking about different impacts of plant and animal medicines and like these different tools for self, almost like awareness and reflection and understanding and things like that. So, and you mentioned like to Om Ganesha yourself, or maybe just quickly, could you could you describe what that means?
Oh, Ganesha in Hindu or Vedic, um, let me see, religion or philosophy rather, school of thought is Ganesha is this elephant-headed deity or god, and known as the destroyer of obstacles. And so when we have obstacles resolved, again, there's a charge. If you are in debt financially, in order for us to remove that obstacle of that debt, if you're $30,000 debt, we need 30,000 just to get you back to middle, right?
Hmm.
So then if you want to be 30,000 profit, now we need a total of 60,000. If you, so that means you have to be prepared to also again deal with the negative attributes of yourself and your current reality to get out of that hole, because you just don't
Hmm.
magically wake up. Again, you have to go through that karma, that cycle of purging and detoxification and learning your lessons. Because if you just woke up the next day with 30K in your bank account and you still have the vibration and frequency of the guy that's 30K in the hole, you're just gonna get yourself back there. You're just gonna get back because
Right.
you haven't learned your lessons. You haven't actually experienced your karma. Um, Side note, this is where, again, as a shaman, where I would say this is where miracles happen. For example, years ago, I had a woman who was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, and she came to me for healing. And I worked on her for an hour. I charged $222. I used tuning forks, my drum, and my voice. And the next day, she messages me, says, "Nobu, I've been coughing every night for years, and I didn't even cough last night. And as of last September, it was 2 years without a cigarette." So that is an instance of, like, people will say, again, looking at this from a mathematical perspective, as I've been trying to kind of paint out with the positive and negative. Well, how does that work? Like, how does that person then go to the other side? Again, it's a miracle, right? They went to a new frequency state overnight without having to suffer on their part, but they did. She paid. There was an energy exchange. She gave me $222, and I took that pain, that negativity, and that karma,
Mm.
and I ingested it with my shit-eating grin and transmuted it. And so again, things work out. Just like
Mm.
getting anything else, like, we all accumulate trash every day in our lives, but fortunately we were able to pay a landfill to dump it all into. You can pass it off. Or, okay, if you have financial debt, there may be someone who's willing to, you know, briefly atone for your sins, you know, and, and pay it off in a longer plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess there's a couple of different things there. So, like you were mentioning, it's almost like a zero sum game in the universe, typically. Like in like these plant and animal medicines, they're not necessarily shortcuts because you still have to go through the experiences in order to learn the lessons, in order to fully integrate maybe the insights that you gain when you're under the medicine. So it's like, you can go on the Bufo retreat ceremony, but if you don't internalize and like have these experiences that teach you these lessons and like have them become part of your being, then you're probably just going to end up right back where you were anyway. So that's another thing that I think I was ignorant to kind of early in this journey as well. I was like, oh, like they have these magic substances and probably take them, and next thing you know, my life's going to be perfect. And no, that's not how it works. But I guess at the same time, like you're saying, there are examples of these kind of more miracle type states where maybe you are able to work either with somebody or have like God, the universe, nature, whatever it is, like transmute that type of energy to maybe move you. Maybe it's not a complete shortcut, but like to move you down the line and kind of take that energetic hit for you.
It's all mathematical in the end. You know, if you want a complete reset in your life, like if someone said like, oh, like God, I pray that tomorrow I wake up fully energized, free of addictions, and every parasite, yeast, can cancer in my body is gone. And then they get struck by lightning.
It's like, you got what you wish for.
You got what you wish for. You did.
Yeah.
Like you ask, you got it. You know, so that's why again the speed of the ascent and the journey is very important, because again, if are we cooking on high heat or are we cooking on low heat, and it's your choice. I prefer raw, but
yeah, and I guess that's something maybe you also talk through with your coaching clients and shamanic clients as well. Is like, do you kind of ask them like, what kind of pace are you trying to set here? And like, are you ready to have your world shaken upside down like in a short amount of time, or would you like to like pace it out slower so that these things are maybe less jarring?
it's actually one of the hardest lessons I learned with my first couple coaching clients. I can definitely say that I lost some coaching clients because I was too aggressive and pushy with my knowledge, skills, and medicine. Because a woman who is a surgeon or a doctor and then has a family at home can't integrate meditation, exercise, yoga, breath work, nature, journaling, all these different things overnight. They just can't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Again, if you're a householder, you have a different style and you have a different intensity of your experience. So for me to try to, that's why it's important again. Well, what's your timeline look like? Like, how much time are you willing to invest in this process? Because again, I want to give my clients the most bang for their buck, because again, you're paying me by the month. So like, I want to see you get to your goals as fast as possible. Like that's my desire. Like I always want to put my foot in the gas. I love that. But I also have to like hit the brakes because not everyone's ready for that same level of intensity. But I would rather be able to over deliver than under deliver. That's my goal. Like my goal is like, hey, I'm willing to shoot for the sun with you, but if we fall short, at least we'll land the moon.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think it's also maybe kind of part of like the culture in the United States of like urgency and hustle and get this thing done now because like you got bigger and better things to do out there and like money to make and whatnot. But perhaps each person should have the intention or just like the conversation with themselves of like, okay, what really do I want to be going through? What like you're saying, time wise and other responsibilities and maybe impacts on their family and friends and things like that before they start diving into the deep end a little too much on these perhaps practices or medicines that may accelerate things a little too rapidly.
Yeah. Whether it's a juice feast, like since my perspectives changed. Before, when I was new to them, I did have that very much like urgency in mindset. Like, oh, I got to clean my insides out. I got to get myself healthy. But now that I have a different perspective and mindset in terms of the timeline, right, which is quite eternal, literally, because I know that if I don't get it all done during this one, well, I'm just gonna continue where I left off in the next one, or it be, your relationships, or it be with your wealth. Just know that you're gonna pick it up later, and but that's the non-egoic way of looking at it. But you choose your own experience and play your adventure the way you want to, and try not to, again, compare yourself to even me, right? Like I don't tell people to do things in the level of intensity I do because they don't have my life. Like chances are you, the person watching, has a 9 to 5, has a family, have a different set of responsibilities and needs. So for you to look at, the Guru Dev in India or the Amma Sri Krishna who's not sleeping at all or not eating for 40 days, like that's ridiculous for you to even compare yourself and beat yourself up for not doing it to their level.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Good point. Maybe to kind of circle back again to the good and evil theme. So it seems like when actually this show Heroes was really cool. It was like one of my favorite shows back in the day when it came on, but they had like one season where like the characters that were heroes kind of became the villains, and like the ones that were the
Oh
villains kind of
yeah.
became the heroes. And I was like, oh wow, like it's so interesting, and that kind of brings up just kind of like the relativity of a lot of these things, and like where you're standing is kind of what defines good versus evil in a lot of different ways, and like the perspective of like whose side you're on. Could you maybe talk about that of like, is morality relative, and like are there ultimate truths as far as like what it could be defined as good versus evil?
100%. And this is gonna, I'll try not to go too dark with this. Um,
Okay.
but like I remember as a child observing Bill Gates, and just I could tell the man was up to no good from my perception, even as a child. And then my father told me like, oh no, he's a philanthropist. He donates millions of dollars to all these causes and whatnot. But then as I've learned, like if you look at COVID or we look at World Health Organization, if you look, everyone look on YouTube, you can see Bill Gates talking years before COVID, talking about creating viruses to reduce human population. The man
Right.
also released mosquitoes, like genetically modified mosquitoes. Or again, we can see that there are certain individuals, not just him, who do, from our perspective, quite heinous acts, but from their perspective, they're doing it for the greater good. Well, like Hitler, like in his mind, he probably didn't go to bed every night thinking to himself, like, you are a piece of shit, Hitler. Like, no, he probably like thought he was doing a good thing. Like, I probably like most people think themselves as the main character or hero of their story. So what
Mm,
they're doing, they believe to be in alignment with some noble endeavor. But again, the contrast from everyone else, like for example, demons don't like me because they know I'm gonna freaking slay them and eat them. So to them, like I'm the fucking bad guy, right?
mm,
um,
right.
it's just again to the jaguar, you know, the rabbit is the rabbit, the monkey, you know, what have you, is its prey. But the rabbit fears, you know, the monkey fears the jaguar because it's going to kill it. But just like, but do people ever view themselves in that light? Right? Do they ever like shine the light in the mirror themselves? It's like, well, what am I being a monster to? What is afraid of me?
Right. Is there a difference there? Because you mentioned, kind of when I was asking like why people fall into evil, and you're like, well, some people intentionally kind of go toward the darkness. Is that like a similar case where it's like they believe that going to the darkness is ultimately good, or like their moral justification like leads them in that direction, or is there like a difference there?
I would say it just depends on where every person's karma, astrology, and and also again your DNA, your genes. Bible taught us before, 14 generations. Your genes, you know, store epigenetic data. So like how you express yourself is going to affect your children as well. Um, but then so for some people, I think that again, there's an alert. Like for me, like it was just kind of like doubling down on what I was doing. Well, like I'm I've demonstrated skills in combat and lock picking and deception, Dr. Haha Lung, all these things. I might as well just double down on what I'm good at, right? You know, I've gone this far. There's no sense stopping now. And this also we're getting coming back to like, you know, like Judeo-Christian, like people don't believe they're also even worthy of forgiveness. So they just double down and don't leave the
Mm,
table and just keep gambling, right? And
mm,
just get deeper and darker into the pit. There's that aspect. Um, and then again, also too, even while we're talking about this good and evil, as a shaman, a lot of Christians would view me as evil. You know, shamanism is a much more, and I'm kind of a different blend because I know I reference like Yeshua and other such figures a lot, but like most shamanism is a very feminine, you know, lower chakra type craft, and the things, you know, like Temescal, Sweat Lodge, like it's simulating you getting rebirth. You're going naked into this dark, hot, moist, you know, lodge for
mm,
in drumming and singing, God knows what. Whereas church, the patriarchal solar religions are again angels of light above, shining down, upper chakra activity, a lot of purples and whatnot. And they're both just looking at the different sides of the coin. Again, one demonizing or villainizing the other. um, Batman. From your eye perspective, he's doing good. Oh, he's taking criminals off the street. And then like, does anyone have compassion for all the criminals that he's broken bones of? And, like that's karma. That's gonna come back around eventually.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, with like the taking the broad scale of the universe and maybe like humanity and civilization and whatnot, like I guess is good and evil inevitable, and will the universe ever reach a point where it kind of like balances out toward this middle middle ground, or will that kind of dichotomy and contrast always exist in your opinion?
It will always exist, and we can prove this mathematically. Because again, we can prove it mathematically, and then we can also, because the equation is not going to hit net zero unless everything just goes kaput. It will never just still out unless everything was paused. So to reach what you're referring to is, again, utter homeostasis is samadhi state, is just witnessing and being one, the Brahman, the one with all learning, God conscious. Like a parent, every parent has favorite child, which is again the lesser child, the evil child, the devil child, or the good child. So, and then going back to the very beginning of like, well, how would you feel if every day was the same, JT? If every day the air didn't move, the sun shone exactly the same way on you, that's not life. That's not an experience, you know. So, does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess like I think about like the long, slow death of the of the universe, but then maybe it just results in a big bang anyway to get it going again. Because what's the point of this universe where everything is just static and the same and all totally equal? And then maybe it also kind of just brings to mind of like this idea of utopia where everyone is just like totally at peace and there's no problems and whatever. It's just like some quote unquote paradise um, will never really exist. So maybe there's no use in trying to bring it about because you'll probably just, the road to hell is paved with good intentions or whatnot.
And that comes back again to the whole the reason why Lao Tzu and them said about not doing actions, because they weren't polarizing themselves. For example, like someone who goes around, you know, killing criminals or putting objectively bad people away, like now that's going to come back around to them in some capacity through the law of karma. In relationship to the incarnations of this Kali Yuga, or this construct in Vedic philosophy, I believe they consider this the 81st. We're in the 81st Rudra, or um, verse of this existence, and then when it ends again, this Kali Yuga, this construct, control alt delete or alt F4, reset the simulation. It just keeps going, right? Because again, like energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transmuted or transferred. So even again from that mathematical perspective, like we're here, we have these observable laws or habits, unless the morphic field of all reality completely evolves and changes, which it might. But from where I'm sitting right now and you are, I could say that this game's going to keep on going. This samsara, this wheel, is going to keep on spinning.
Mm. Yeah. So it's like, if the world's getting you down, then just like kind of take a step back and realize like it's inevitable. Like there's going to be these forces, there's going to be these dynamics. The good versus evil battle is eternal, and just do your part to live the way that you want to live and express what is morally just and right to you, and not let it get you down too much.
Yeah.
And maybe to preface like a future episode, but you kind of were talking about angels and demons and like these different entities. Could you like briefly touch on that? I feel like maybe that's enough content for like a whole other discussion, but like, yeah, I guess I just always thought of them as like more like mythical or maybe metaphorical, but like they're, do you like interact with these in like a direct, almost tangible way in your work as a shaman?
So for me personally, again, some people are highly skilled in different clair skills, whether it be clairaudience, clairvoyance, claircognizance, psychometry, etc. So for me, and again, like I told you before, I saw shadow cats as a child. Like I have not had any visionary experiences with angels, but I have had some quite tangible experiences in reality with daemons and jinn, which jinns are also fourth dimensional entities born of the smokeless flame, which in their culture you could even say they are a demon by all rights. Again, a subroutine, a lower element, again, fourth dimensional plane. As far as angels, no, but just give the contrast between the daemons and the jinn. In the Bible, it often says that people were terrified when they came into the presence of angels. And I'll break that down with frequency. And they often would say, be not afraid. And this also goes back to the juice fast we just did episode. Because when you are in the presence, say your frequency is at 500, and this is a logarithmic scale, it's not linear. So as we get, 1,000 is like 1,000 times stronger than 500 frequency. So if you're at 500 and an angel or Christ is at 1,000, they are very, very bright and very, very intense to you. So just like, again, as the vampire can't even stand the sun, if you are a lower frequency, you're not gonna. It's going to be really intense for you. The bridge between you, again, and also as a measure of truth. Going back to what I said before about talk sense to fools, no say I'm foolish. If someone's not able to resonate with what you're putting down, light, then it's going to burn potentially. It's going to hurt. It's not going to be a pleasant experience potentially, which again is also the appeal of such darker entities for people who are at that darker stages of their existence or life.
Right, and I guess then you can see why those bright people are often, killed sometimes, but then also like exiled or
Alone.
Just cast out of society because it maybe makes people realize their own shortcomings, so to speak.
Cognitive dissonance is a really strong thing ingrained within most people, of being able to, like, when triggered by another being, of self-reflecting of like, why am I being triggered by their actions? Again, going back to the dietary piece, just as simple as like, if people, the very primal need of like eating together as a cohesive unit, or again, as we talked before, we're drinking, and this person's not, them person not doing the behavior that everyone else is doing shines light on their behavior because they're not complying with the groupthink.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But also,
you think you're better than us? You think you're better than us, Nobu?
but which goes back to forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Right. Cool. Wow. I'm like, there's lots to think on here. So, any other things you wanna leave the audience with before we wrap up this topic?
2 things. First thing is this: strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men. And the other thing is this: is what you fight, you become. What you resist persists.
Yeah, good things to consider. I like that. The cycle of strong, hard times, weak men. Yeah, that makes total sense. And the fighting, what you fight, you become, because you put your energy kind of toward that. So then it kind of becomes part of your being. Yeah. Awesome, Nobu. Thank you again for walking us through some of these deep and often confusing and soul-searching topics. So appreciate you joining us, and thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.